of what I would be dropping into today would be about transition. And how it is such a transition is such a an expected part of life, an inevitable part of life, to have transitions that we navigate through. And there are all kinds of them, and there are mm, two that are feeling really mm, present in my life lately, and one of them I feel like I was more aware of, and then the other one feels like it came sort of definitely out of the blue. And it was interesting as I grabbed this particular scarf out of my closet. I have a number of scarves, and it's fun to see which one wants to be worn. And this one, it's cashmere. It was my grandmother's, and my grandmother was 100, and she passed away the day after Mother's Day earlier this year. And I had an experience like a week or two ago. I took myself through one of my somatic practices, and I felt like I was grieving the grief about the relationship between my mom and my grandma that was maybe never felt. Um, and how our culture really doesn't normalize the experience of very few, quote, negative emotions. And that we have to really make this conscious choice to be with the flow of the emotional experiences, and how grief can sometimes be one that is hard to avoid because it's so potent and so like like guttural painful that it kind of forces us to go into it, other versus other emotions that might be easier to kind of check out from or avoid, of course depending on the depth of that grief. And I'm thinking specifically right now of the thing that came into my awareness yesterday via a friend, um, a dear female sister, girlfriend, friend of mine, whose son, to any parents out there, mm, whose son passed. And he passed in a way that's like the hardest way that you could think of for your child, someone you love, your child, someone you love to pass. And mm, how just sort of debilitating that pain can be. And I'm really really remarking and noticing how beautiful it is that my friend is taking herself through this process. That's very raw and very fresh, like 48 hours kind of fresh, and really inviting us all to, even if we haven't felt some sort of pain from our past, that it might be still alive in our body, and how we can call up that experience and feel grief around that experience that maybe we didn't allow ourselves to drop into as much as we could have when it happened. And so, like the discharge of that energy is really healthy. And when we give ourselves the space to be with it and to express it through movement and sound and presence, that it transmutes and becomes this place of power in our body, that the energy itself is moving, and that as we allow that energy to move, the body feels capable and powerful again. And mm, so I'm inviting us all to pause for a moment and maybe notice if there's something for you in your lived experience where maybe there's more grief, or maybe there's something happening in your life right now that feels like it needs a little bit more attention and time and care and awareness and presence to be felt. So, yeah, practicing how to be with our grief. I'm noticing around where I live, there are more grief circles, grief ceremonies, places for people to come together in community and feel the feelings that are so normal. We are, whether it's actual death of a human or some other type of transition in our life, there can be grief in all sorts of transitions. There can also be other emotions in transitions, but grief can be one. And it's so healthy to allow ourselves to feel that so that we can stay in the flow of life and in the flow that our body is inviting us into to be in the experience of human life. Mm. So I'm going to just set this down and give myself a minute to feel grief and be witnessed in that for a minute. And maybe as I'm doing it, um, you can join me. Mm. Just gonna take a minute to take a sip of this hot tea. Mm. The simplicity and deliciousness of this hot cup touching my hands and feeling the warm liquid on my tongue and the inside of my mouth, and even on my lip as I press the cup against my lip. Mm. The sound that my mouth makes when I kind of use a little bit of air to bring that drink into my mouth because it's a little hot. The smell, the simplicity of being present with what is, and the slowing down and stillness that is required. It's funny, the word required can carry this, like, you must do this kind of energy, I think, from the cultural energetics related to a lot of things that become kind of like, I'm going to take your power away from you and you have to do what I say, versus this is this is an invitation to um, permit yourself to choose. Require meaning it's hard to be with what is if we're not slowed down because of the busyness of life. And so it's an invitation, is what I'm trying to say, to slow down so that you can feel your body. So this felt sense experience of our thoughts, of our emotions, the sensations that we actually can connect to in our body's experience of an experience. This is deep presence with self. This is one version. This is one way of being in deep presence with oneself. This is how the body feels met. The body feels met in the moments that we create that are still, that acknowledge these felt sense pieces. So slowing down, connecting to a thought maybe an image, a memory that creates the experience of grief for you. So feeling that coming up, and I'm gonna like immediately feel the pain of a child's death, the pain that a mother would feel of her child's death. I feel my throat tighten, and it's like the airway becomes kind of constricted in my neck. My face gets hot. There's a feeling of contraction. It's like starting from the middle of my belly, and it kind of reverberates like a snake, kind of like up from my belly, through my chest, through my neck, and up to my face. So it's like a tightening and like of a cord. It starts in my belly and my gut. I feel like the inside of my ears, it kind of like, it's like this little shuddering kind of vibration, like actual like physical vibration. It's like a flutter in my ears. Obviously, like you can see this and I can feel it. My eyebrows moving towards each other and my eyelids kind of squeezing shut as my tear ducts create moisture. My lips get kind of pursed together. My breathing, it feels like it becomes more up in my chest and lighter, and maybe even like I'm holding my breath. Yeah, my breath, I stop breathing and my stomach contracts, like all my stomach muscles kind of pull back towards my spine. And then, as you can hear, like the contraction will release, and then I'll take a sharp, fast inhale. Wow. Yeah. I'm going to consciously choose to bring myself back to a place of neutral, letting those thoughts go, and opening my eyes to bring myself back into this room, seeing something that makes me happy. And I see it's having the opposite effect because I just am seeing a cross stitch on the wall. Um, Show you those flowers over there that are orange and green and yellow. That was I have a couple cross stitches around my house that my grandma made, and that was one of them. And just feeling like when I cried there, just feeling, I think I feel some guilt because I remember the last time I really saw her, you know, before she had her fall and broke her hip, and then she died 3 days after that. Um, and I was just sitting next to her in this upstairs kind of gathering room at her assisted living home, and we were both just sitting side by side. She was in her wheelchair, I was in a chair, and we were just looking out the window at the beautiful view to the east and leaning our heads against each other and holding hands, and I could feel like she just would have been happy to have me sit there with her all day long, just like that. No words, just being there with her, to know that she mattered, and that's all we really want, was to be, connected to and know that we matter, and how many how many of us feel deep in our soul that we can even create that feeling for ourselves, that we can feel like we matter to us, which is love. Like really seeing ourselves and really being able to show up for ourselves, to know in our own self presence and our own self experience that we matter. The desperation of so many humans in this context that's fraught with urgency and distraction and meaninglessness, and the choices that go with that to try and feel some sense of alive, or to try to feel some sense of I matter, coming from an experience that we generate to reassure ourselves that we are okay and that we matter, because of the inundation of pain, the inundation of not having quality human intentional experience that starts from childhood. And so my takeaway from my sister, my chosen sister, and her death of her son is how the relationship that I have with my child is like the most important thing, and how I can be with him and show up wholly with all of my energy for him, with him, because he's just absorbing right now. For the next year or two, his brain is fully in imagination mode, which is a mode that we as adults have to invite ourselves into. We're always in, I can't remember the wave state, but the thinking wave state is a very different wave state than what's natural for we humans 0 to 7 years old. And all he needs from me right now is just to be with, to be with. That's it. Be with, fully, completely be with. And the deep responsibilities that we've put upon ourselves to just survive in this messy civilized context make it so that we can't just be with, or make it so that it's really challenging to just be with. And so that's my job. That's my responsibility more than anything else, is to simply be with him. And so I will invite us all to notice how we can bring more meaningful, conscious intention into our own experience to cultivate, first and foremost, this meaning and mattering of ourselves with and inside ourselves for ourselves. Um, if we're beyond that childhood stage, now we're adults. Now we have the task of doing that for ourselves. And we can get professional support, we can join intentional men's groups, women's groups, co-ed groups. We can find ourselves in other community gatherings that have consciousness and connection that is real and authentic, like the space that I cultivated here over the weekend, um, for couples and singles to do tantric intimacy practice, which is simply just being present with what is, with the body, energy, breath, sound, focus. So first and foremost, bringing ourselves to ourselves in an intentional, conscious way. And then understanding that each choice we make is either bringing us more closely into that or not. And just being thoughtful about that. How do we want to feel in connection with ourselves? And if we didn't receive that type of substrate of self-connection through our childhood, we get to cultivate that for ourselves in adulthood. Beautiful. Like, beautiful. We get to choose that. That's the liberation that we get to choose for ourselves. So inviting ourselves to lean into that just a little bit more. And then to remember how there are things that we can be grateful for, little things, these strings of little things that we can be grateful for, like this heat on my hand, like the little birds that I'm seeing on the branches outside this window, like my body being able to sit here. I can use both of my arms, my legs. I can hear my voice. These things are taken for granted, how simple and profound they are. And that when we choose to be with what is, that's the process of cultivating our inner strength and power, of which no one has control over but ourselves. This is the gold mine. The gold mine is living inside of our body. Mm. I hope that you have an intentional, beautiful, powerful day and learn something to expand your growth in some meaningful way. And thank you for choosing that. I see you. You matter. I love you. We are all here together. Sending love for those watching this now or at a future moment, and feeling the connection that we share through this expansive time space continuum, the energy that bonds us and unites us, connects us. Mm. Thank you. See you next time.